Norway Peki Lungti Lerim Sinsinanke Kwela Samta Testele, Natash Lamoyi, Germany Friedrich Neumann Tabsakanki, Koti Walia, Germany ta Austria che Europe Jacob Niki, Tozotumi Tukle to be Rukashi, Kesa Sugar Dharmsalalia, Pebjorki, Pumi Tixu Zow Gureki, Pebe Loptakata, Rishunki Tine Kankalia, Kolganashimbre. Tigalungting Khane Kokap Dita Tune, Thale Sugar Dharmsalalia, Europe Tozo Tumi, Ruganiti Nanke, Germany Tozo Nanki, Free Democratic Party Kuyamangso Sobe Guti, Kushab Torsten Herbst, Nedishuye. Mr. Torsten Herbst here is the parliamentary leader of the FDP German parliamentary group, and he has come to Dharamsala this time with a delegation of 4 German and 2 Austrian parliamentarians. Mr. Torsten, welcome to our studio. And thank you so much for making time for us today.
Thanks for having me here. It's a pleasure.
So before we get on with the interview, can you please tell us about the main purpose and significance of this visit to Dharamsala this time? I mean, both personally and as the leader of the delegation.
I mean, the idea behind the trip to Dharamsala is to get to know more about the Tibetan cause. And of course, we know in Germany what Tibet is. We know the Dalai Lama, but I've never expected what I encountered here. So I'm really impressed and touched. And especially it's also very personal for me because I grew up in the East under communist rule. And we fought for freedom, for democracy, for free press. And it took until 1989 that we achieved it. And I was a school student at the time, took part in the street protests. And so it's also an emotional thing for me, and I can understand how it is, the struggle for freedom.
Yeah, I learned that the delegation was supposed to meet with His Holiness the Dalai Lama this morning, but sadly it got cancelled because of his health issue. Were you looking forward to this meeting? And if you would have met him, what would you have told him?
I would have told him that we in Europe understand what he does, and we really admire his approach to a free Tibet, because, I mean, he's not looking for, in an aggressive way. He's had always he pursues a peaceful struggle for a free Tibet, and that's very impressive. And he has a huge positive impression in whole of Europe, I would say. And also in Germany, he's a personality we really admire.
Then my next question will be, how do you see China in the current international scenario, and what is Germany's, EU and your personal stand on China?
I mean, China, I think the view on China has changed over time. I mean, in the past, it was more or less economic cooperation, and we have, of course, very deep economic interdependence. But now there's a rethinking in Europe and also in Germany, because we see politically a very aggressive style of China towards Taiwan, for instance, but let's also face the conflicts in the South China Sea. And there's now a new approach. Our government has adopted a new strategy called China Strategy, which says, okay, we are open for economic cooperation, but we need to decrease economic dependence. So we want to diversify, we want to de-risk our economic strategy, and that's main issue for the coming years, I would say. And also, I mean, we have seen the Russian aggression in Ukraine, and that was something which remembered us what happens when an authoritarian regime feels it's easy to invade a neighbor country, or it's easy to invade other countries. And that's why I think we have a new, more realistic approach to China now in Germany and in Europe as a whole.
And then my next question is the most eminent one, and I'm sure you must be expecting that. What is your take or outlook on the Tibetan struggle?
I hope the Tibetans will be successful. It's not easy, we know it, but I believe your approach, saying we do not just want to have our country back, we want to have autonomy within the borders of China. It's a very smart approach, and hopefully you're successful. I mean, think of Germany reunification. I mean, there were only a few believing that this would happen in our lifetime, and suddenly it happened. So you never can be sure what's happening. And of course, I wish that you are successful in your struggle for peace and democracy in Tibet.
Thank you. And then coming back to the Dharamsala visit, how did it go so far? And what would be your main takeaway from this visit?
Oh, we had various insights from, the Center of Performing Arts, talks about climate issue, climate change, political discussions with the representatives of your government. And I'm deeply impressed, especially by establishing the democratic system here. I mean, you are refugees settling here and have a system like we have in Europe, a very democratic system. And I think that's a sharp contrast to what China does. I mean, we know the massacre of the square of the Heavenly Peace, and that's pictures we cannot get out of our mind. I mean, I was a kid when I saw it on TV, but we felt what such a regime is capable of. And what you do here, peaceful, democratic, it's a real contrast to this. And that's something I didn't know before, and I'm sure not many Germans know that you have, the pillars, 3 pillars of power with the judiciary system, with a parliament, and with the government, and it's working the same way like our European institutions work.
Okay, then we all know that China always makes a lot of fuss about any international, dignitaries visiting Dharamsala and engaging with the Tibetan exile government or community. So, with this thought, do you expect any backlash from China for this visit this time?
I'm sure they noticed that our delegation is coming to Dharamsala, but I'm personally not afraid of China. I think you are a beacon of democracy, and also hope for, I think, many other people who wish that they have a free life wherever they live. I mean, that's not only the Tibetans in China who are suppressed, but also other people. And I think what you do is very important. It's an important work, and that's why I support it.
Thank you. Thank you. That is all for today. I know you're very busy, but thank you very much for taking time for us.
It was a pleasure. Thank you very much.
Our main objective is fulfilled. We come here to learn. Bringing Tibet into the political debate and discourse is probably the most important one, because this opens up possibilities. And this first and very main step has been fulfilled by us. So we go back with this backpack of knowledge and possibilities, which we are very proud of, and bring Tibet back into this discourse in order to make possibilities of motions possible and hopefully in the future also happen.